David, there's a lot to get to here. So, on the campaign trail today, I said earlier in the day when I kind of heard the clips of what everybody had said, things to me anyway seem to be bleeding into everything else. I'm not sure who's saying what. Everyone's talking about housing, what they're going to change, tax incentives put forth by, both the liberals and conservatives. Is this kind of losing the message at some point where one party has sort of a unique message and the others don't?
Absolutely, and especially with these, continuous news cycles, and as you said, one story on top of the other. I don't know if you probably have seen the latest Nanos tracking poll. What's so fascinating right now is that when you ask Canadians who they favor on the subject of the economy, Carney or Poilievre, they're both tied at 29%. But if you ask them who's the best equipped to deal with Trump, Carney has 60% support. And that's the question. It was very funny. I don't know if you had a chance to actually watch Carney's announcement on housing this morning, but he started the first three paragraphs were about Trump. And so as long as the ballot question, because now we're talking about this, but what's the big announcement this week? What is everybody waiting for this week? Wednesday, Donald Trump's announcement. And as you said earlier today, regardless of what is said, it should reflect positively on Carney, because as he did last week, he's going to stop campaigning. He's going to rewear the clothes of the prime minister, and he doesn't look like somebody aspiring to be prime minister. Magically, I don't know how this has happened, but he has done it. He really embodies the prime minister. He's not some guy running to be prime minister. He is the prime minister. And so as long as Canadians buy into what Carney is selling on that front, and the ballot question remains who's best equipped to deal with Trump, that's what's going to dominate everything else. That's what people are thinking about. They're not talking about an energy corridor that may happen 5-10 years from now, which was Poilievre's big announcement today. They're not necessarily, of course they're concerned about housing. Housing is a huge issue in Canada, but Carney, again, has the economic gravitas to show that, okay, I know how I'm going to deal with this issue. But you're right. Even though Carney had a difficult week last week, I mean, he did fumble a few times last week, but his response to Trump won the week, as the polling up until yesterday showed, and the daily tracking polls show. And so as long as that holds, it's going to be very difficult for Poilievre to show, and here as well for Yves-François Blanchet. Yves-François Blanchet has the same problem that Poilievre has in the rest of the country here in Quebec. He cannot find an issue that is allowing him to supplant Carney's position on Trump and being the best man to deal with Trump.
I wonder, David, though, it's kind of weird in a sense. We'll know Wednesday what Trump's position is. We'll finally get some kind of, direction as to what's going to happen. But then there's another 13 days until that first debate on April 16th, which is, I guess, a pretty large window for maybe the Conservatives to decide what it is we're going to fight this election on when you can't fight it against what we thought we could, which was Justin Trudeau. So you mentioned that Pierre Poilievre is still pretty much focused on his message now. We also know there's been some internal fighting within the Conservative campaign. It's kind of like they're waiting for this day to pass and then get back to what should be the issues in the campaign.
Well, we'll see. But the thing is that what happened over the weekend with Corey Teneycke, and I know most listeners don't know who Corey Teneycke is, but he is the architect of Doug Ford's last two resounding election victories in Ontario. He was on Stephen Harper's staff. He is a major player in Conservative Party politics, especially coming out of Ontario. And for him to come out the way he did on Friday and throughout the weekend, criticizing the Poilievre campaign, and Kasia Caridon this morning in La Presse, for example, and other outlets, saying that Poilievre's message is not adapted. It is not dealing with Canadians problems. The issue right now, the uncertainty, the anxiety, and the fear is related to Trump. And as long as Poilievre still has, I mean, for example, Corey Tenayk and Tasha Keridan and others have noted, look at what Poilievre's slogan is. It's Canada First. And what does that remind you of? America First, which is one of Trump's main slogans. And so the other major problem, and it's very hard to, in a few weeks or even days, to change that, another very important data point in the Nanos polling, which is reflected in all the other polls, is the gender gap that is huge against Poilievre. Poilievre has a woman problem across the generations. And that you cannot fix in a day or in a week. So I don't understand why the campaign, now, as you suggested, maybe after the tariffs, you'll see a strategy shift, but also everybody was talking, all the political operatives were saying, oh, well, Poilievre has his wife. We haven't seen her. There are no star candidates. In Quebec, for example, there is nothing. There's nobody on the roster that can speak intelligently about the economy here in Quebec. There is nobody so far across Ontario or the rest of Canada that can speak intelligently about the economy on the Conservative roster. And same thing for the Bloc. Yves-François Blanchet is having a horrible time being able to talk about the economy in any kind of serious or intelligent way. So there's that problem as well. So it's pretty much Carney's to lose. I mean, if he has a horrible French debate and he keeps dropping the ball, let's say if this Paul Chang situation gains some traction and there's other revelations and then it piles on, you never know. But right now, both the Conservatives and the Bloc are searching for answers. And my God, the NDP is completely imploding.
Well, to that point, and I heard someone mention this today, and I thought maybe this is interesting, right? When you look at the actual voting, despite the fact that the Liberals have pulled ahead of the Conservatives, we know that a lot of the gain for the Liberals has come directly from the NDP. So the question then becomes, if that's the case, and polls show us that it is, should maybe the Conservatives spend some more time trying to appeal to NDP voters to consider voting Conservative rather than Liberal?
I mean, I think that would mean quite a momentous shift to the center for Poilievre. And we haven't seen that. Do you imagine NDP voters being attracted by the big announcement of a big oil pipeline across the country, as was Poilievre's big announcement today? It's going to be hard. The NDP right now, the NDP voter is now saying, okay, I have no choice. And so the only way, because the Conservative vote is not, Tom Mulcair always says this, right? The Conservative vote is not efficient. It's not well distributed across the country. And especially in Ontario, because that's the whole ballgame. In Ontario, a lot of Conservative seats, especially in Toronto and the GTA, the Conservatives' only shot at winning some of these seats is if there's an equitable split between the Liberals and the NDP. Look at the provincial election in Ontario. Resounding win for Doug Ford, no doubt. But he won with 40% of the vote. But there was 30% of Ontario voters that voted Liberal and 22% that voted NDP. That allowed Doug Ford to have his massive win in terms of seats. And that's the problem right now. And so Poilievre is in a position, and in Quebec, that's the other big problem right now, is that what we've been seeing provincially. Remember, Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon is leading in the polls, and we're all saying, okay, the PQ is in the lead. But all the polls have been saying the same thing for a year now. A third of the PQ support is Federalist. And funny enough, before the Carney turnaround, the Bloc was leading in Quebec with 32, 33, sometimes even 34, 35%. Now they're down to 25, 27. The Federalists that were in the regions, the Francophone Federalists are saying, well, I'm going to vote Bloc because I don't like Trudeau, are actually coming back to the Liberals. And that's why the Liberals right now are cruising with like 39% in Quebec, which is unheard of.
Yeah.
And so the idea right now is that we Canadians and Quebecers feel we are in crisis mode. We need the best people that are out there in the room. And in Quebec, that's the thing. The Bloc says, oh, we're going to defend Quebec's interests. Well, Quebecers, Francophones are saying, you know what? I'd rather have people in the room than outside the room defending my interests. And that's what's going on.
David, real quick, because I'm going to run late here. First thing, Paul Chang, does he step down? Does Mark Carney change his mind and tell him he has to leave based on what he said?
I think if we're still talking about this tomorrow, end of day, I think Chang is going to withdraw. It's not going to be Carney. Chang is going to withdraw. But it's a big Ontario seat, Mark in Unionville. He flipped the seat. It was a Conservative seat before. He flipped it in 21. And so it's an important seat. If this story still has legs after Trump, definitely it will be time for him to withdraw.
And last thing, how surprised by Carl Blackburn deciding he now wants to run for the leadership of the Quebec Liberals?
I'm not surprised because here's the thing. The Charest conservative wing of the Liberal Party, which is the current establishment, doesn't see Charles Milliard as being able to topple Pablo Rodriguez, which is the federal liberal wing of the Liberal Party. So Carl Blackburn will now be the anybody but Pablo candidate, will have all the Charest team, the Charest operatives behind him. That's his team. And so I'm not surprised at this. This was in the works for a while now.
Is he suddenly now becoming the favorite or not?
No, not yet, because, again, the problem right now is that when this race started, the Liberals didn't even have 9,000 members. This is about who's going to sign up members. Now, are the former Charest Liberals willing to come back home? That's the big question. But this is not making the favorite right now.
David Heurtel, David, thank you. Appreciate it.
Have a great week.
Take care.